Hi, this is Alex Gonçalves of tukiscout.com, and this is the Seleção podcast.
Simões bending one for Torres. Eusebio. Oh my word! Have you ever seen anything like that?
Bem jogado por Simão, a passar por dois adversários. Simão a tentar oferecer o golo a Figo e a bola é golo! O golo de Figo!
Ricosta vai, acreditou, vai tirar para o golo, atira o golo! 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 Cristiano Ronaldo, vai embora Cristiano Ronaldo! Bateu, golo, 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 golo! Chuta! Gol!
And we welcome you to episode number 68 of the Seleção podcast. Folks, we are on the road to the World Cup. Woo, baby. Of course, we are a proud partner of Portugal.net. My name is Danny Pinto. I am your host. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the podcast. And yes, as I screamed just a few seconds ago, we are officially, it's World Cup time, baby. It is the roster has been announced. Matches are going to take place in just a little less than 2 weeks for our Seleção. Less than 10 days for the World Cup to start on November the 20th as of this recording. So very, very exciting times here as, after all the vitriol, all of the criticism of this team, of this manager, of these players, we're back in the about to start the biggest tournament in all of sports. And I can't wait to get started with these World Cup episodes. During the World Cup, prior to the World Cup, we got a lot in store for you. Hopefully, in the next month or so, as the hopes obviously is the Seleção making a deep run in this World Cup, and who knows? You just never know. And I'll try to keep that timid positivity right about there for right now. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will take a look at the roster. Those who made it, those who did not, and I'll give you guys my thoughts on that as well. So yeah, but we're on the road here, on the road to Qatar, just less than 2 weeks away. I can't believe we're already here. So before we get started, again, let's get you all the information on how you can follow the pod, support the pod. Selecaopod.com is our website. Go ahead and bookmark that. Go on Twitter and on Instagram. You can find us there. Both of them on this handle at SeleçãoPod. Facebook.com/SeleçãoPod is our Facebook page. And you can email the show seleçãopod@gmail.com. Remember, if you're watching us right now on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button on this episode. Go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. Set your notifications on YouTube, as there's going to be a lot of this face. And we'll talk about this if you're watching in just a couple of minutes here. But all the ways you can help us out on YouTube, I just mentioned. Like the episode, subscribe to the podcast, notifications for when the podcast is put up another episode, or if we go live. Just make sure you guys take care of all that. And of course, subscribe to us on all the podcasting platforms that you are using if you're just listening to us through the old ears. We're on all podcasting platforms. Just search the Seleção podcast. And of course, on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating and a review. If you're listening to us via Spotify, hit us with a 5-star rating. All these free, and I can't stress this enough, all these free ways that you guys can help us out, become more visible. Share the podcast with people that are like-minded, like yourselves, who love this national team, who love Portuguese soccer. If they haven't, for whatever reason, heard of us yet, as we are still growing, send them a link to us on YouTube. Send us a link, or send them a link from us from any of your podcasts. Send links to our social media stuff. Any way you can help us out grow, especially during this time right now, the World Cup, would be greatly appreciated. So if you're watching on YouTube, and I made reference with my my hands here, so you could see this face looks a little different, and I've got the whole handlebar mustache deal going on. Of course, we are in the month of November, and what November means to a lot of us fellas listening and talking into this microphone is that it's also Movember, and I am participating and using the pod here to get to as many people as we can. But I'm participating in Movember and trying to raise money to raise awareness on men's health issues, prostate cancer, testicular cancer, men's suicide, men's mental health, anything that guys are going through. That we're macho dudes for the majority of us, especially being Portuguese. We've always been kind of told to kind of buck up and just kind of get through whatever it is that you're going through. And the reality of the situation is that sometimes we as men hold that in, and we don't ask for help or don't choose to try to get help. And what I'm trying to do is with this mustache, and by the way, my wife loves it. I mean, she cannot wait until December the 1st, but it's just a thing that I've always wanted to do. And with the forum and the reach that the podcast does have, I personally, I'm trying to raise $100 American, and we have a link in the show description of both the YouTube and the podcast episodes. So you'll find the links there on if you would like to donate. The Movember Foundation has funded over 1,200 men's health projects globally. So not just in the States, not just in North America, the entire world. I believe the Movember project was in the Movember movement, and the foundation have ties to Australia from the inception of this thing. So if you're interested in donating, I would be eternally grateful. Like I said, the link is in the description of the show. At the end of November, at the end of Movember, I will personally match the total number of funds, or the total funds, I should say, up to $100. So if we reach 100 and we go over 100, I'll donate 100 myself. But I'll match up to $100 if you guys are interested in helping us get some more money out to programs that can help guys all over the world with, again, mental health issues in general. It's important to me. I've had family with prostate and other cancers, and mental health is just so prevalent nowadays. So that is what I have for you right there on that. So would appreciate any kind of support you guys can give for that. Now, this team, as I segue so professionally, this team can give us mental health issues. And obviously I'm not trying to make light of it, but this team has been the last year and a half or so, maybe the last 2 years. This team has given us plenty of gray hairs, plenty of just plenty to complain about, to be honest. But there's something about the World Cup, and there's something about when the roster for a World Cup is announced that kind of gives you a little bit of maybe renewed hope. And I'm going to be introducing something called the Hopium Den to the podcast during the World Cup. So not Opium Den, because I'm not down with that. As I'm winking. No, I'm kidding. So it's something clever called the Hopium Den, and we're going to go and see, we're going to enter the den of hope, the Hopium Den, and we're going to see exactly how we're feeling each and every podcast and each and every episode as we progress towards the World Cup, and then obviously during the World Cup. But on Thursday, November the 10th, which was yesterday as of this recording, I'm going to go ahead and try to get to the squad up and running here. And there we are. So these are the 26 players that are being tasked with winning the World Cup for the Portuguese national team, for Fernando Santos, for these 26 players in general. I will say this: there were not a lot of surprises for me on this roster, and we'll go through the roster position by position. I'm not going to go through all 26 players. I don't believe. I could get going on a tangent here, but I don't believe I'm going to be doing that. But these are the 26 that Fernando Santos decided to name for the World Cup. We'll start with the goalkeepers, and again, this may have been the least surprising group of them all. As I pull up the keepers here, so Diogo Costa, José Sá, Rui Patricio. Not a lot of surprise there. Not going to get too much into this group because it was pretty much chalk, pretty much what we thought was going to happen. Some calls for maybe Rui Silva instead of José Sá with Wolves being as down as they are this year. Rui Patricio is still playing pretty well with Roma. Diogo Costa, though, is the man who I know that he probably won't wear the number 1 shirt, but he is the number 1 keeper from here on out. I was admittedly very skeptical when he was first introduced to the World Cup roster, or to the Portugal roster, and I just have been amazed at how good this kid is. I think it was Eric Krakauer on Twitter during Champions League, or right after Champions League, and he just mentioned that Diogo Costa is going to make Porto a lot of money, probably as soon as next summer. So the kid is just a phenomenal keeper, and I think we're very, very lucky to have him between the sticks for the Seleção. So again, not a lot of surprise there with this group. But those are your World Cup keepers: Diogo Costa, José Sá, and Rui Patricio. All right, now we get to, I would say, the first curious selection. Not curious, but just the. So I'm gonna bring up the defenders now, and with the defenders, you have Diogo Dalot, João Cancelo, António Silva, Danilo Pereira, Pep, Ruben Dias, Nuno Mendes, and Rafael Guerreiro. So I'm not going to spend much time on the right backs nor the left backs. I think those are pretty much set in stone. Obviously, after much fanfare, António Silva, the young 19-year-old from Benfica, just has exploded on the scene in this first half of the club season, and I think has made a merited debut on this roster. For me, the conversation with this group of center backs begins and ends with Pep. He's been hurt, has not played for Porto, and I am not convinced at all that Pep will play a single minute in the World Cup. Fernando Santos mentioned, we wouldn't pick Pep if he wasn't cleared by our medical staff. That's all well and good. That's fine. But I have a tough time believing that he is going to be 100% ready to go for the World Cup. He's 39 years old, and there's just I've mentioned this on social media. I've mentioned this on podcasts that I've guested on. I want Pep at Qatar. I want him around the team. I want him in the locker room. I want him on the training ground. I want him to speak to this club or to this team. What I am not convinced of is that he should be wearing the Seleção jersey on the field, because he has just not been in form. And, the last call ups. He was called up for the Nations League matches, and was never really fully fit. Hasn't played a game since, and yet he's on the roster. There are plenty of options as I bring the 55-man pre-World Cup roster up here. Give me a second, folks, as you're watching and listening. But there are options in case he can't go, and there are options that maybe some folks listening and watching here you could have seen. And I'm looking at the roster here, and I'll put it up on YouTube. Names like David Carm and Fabio Cardoso from Port, Gonçalo Inácio from Sporting. You have I can read here. Oh, Thiago Jaló, who's playing at Lille. Diogo Leite as well. Me personally, I think one of those 5 guys are going to find themselves at Qatar at some point. Is if you remember Fernando Santos when Pep went down during the Nations League, or just not being fully fit for the Nations League, he did not call a center back replacement. We were left with Ruben Dias, Danilo, and at the time Thiago Jaló. If you look at the roster as it is now, you have Ruben Dias, you have Danilo, but you have Antonio Silva, who has never been part of the senior squad, has not played a minute with the senior squad. And for him to be your now 3rd center back, I think is asking a lot of the kid. So while I would like to see him be given an opportunity, I don't think it's an opportunity that needs to be forced upon him. I want to see him earn it on the practice field. And if he can, great. And if he can contribute as a sub, great. But because of Fernando Santos' past, roster management, what I don't want to see is him moving up the pecking order, because Fernando Santos doesn't want to replace anybody at center back. I remember him saying, I've got 3 center backs after Pep went down. I've got 3. That's all I need. You have a 26-man roster, Fernando Santos. You had a 26-man roster for the Nations League too, but there is no problem, in my opinion, with bringing a body to Qatar to replace Pep if you need to. And it could be Domingos Duarte too. He's got experience with the national team. But there is no negative, in my opinion, to bring or to replace Pep if you need to, and if you can, prior to the World Cup. Again, I'm not convinced Pep is ready to go. I understand the importance of Pep on this roster. He has been immense for this national team for the last 10 years, maybe more. I just think that his importance to this national team can still be found if he's around the team, hopefully just not forced onto the field, because I don't know. I have a bad feeling with Pep, and I love Pep. This is a guy who, next to Ronaldo, was probably the most important player in 2016. Where's the Seleção crest on his chest? And like he was born in Lisboa or Porto or Guimarães or Algarve or Braga. He is Portugal through and through. But I have concerns, and I have big concerns with him playing, considering that he's been out for as long as he has. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the defense here. When it comes to the midfield, again, it's the player right now who isn't on the team, who's making a little bit of more of the noise in terms of social media and the fans, which is Fernando Santos. But let me first get you guys updated and recap who's on the team right now. Midfielders are João Palhinha, Ruben Neves, Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, João Mário, Mateus Nunes, Otávio, Vitinha, and William Carvalho. Those are your 9 midfielders. First thing I see when this roster is announced, Fernando Santos should be on this team. I get it, but I was fully expecting Fernando Santos to not make this team because of his form at PSG. Now, I just talked about Pep not even playing, and he's on the team. What's the difference between his situation and Fernando Santos? I get that it's a valid question. It's something that I've seen a little bit since the roster was announced. It's a very crowded midfield for Fernando Santos to penetrate and try to get in. Now, the thing that I look at is twofold. If you're not in good form with your club team, it's very hard to make any kind of national team roster. This is not exclusive just to Portugal. But there is something to be said for guys who seem to play their best football when they put that national team jersey on, and I think Fernando Santos is one of those players. I don't feel that he's been shafted here by any. I mean, I don't think he's not deserving or undeserving. He is just in this kind of weird spot in his career once again. It happened after he made the move to Bayern. It's now happened after he's made the move to PSG. So if you look at it based on club form, I think him not making this team shouldn't surprise anyone. But I think there is something to be said, one, for how he plays when he has the national team jersey on, and two, what he brings to the field. And we'll get to the forwards and the wingers here after this, but there is a lack of pace on this national team for this World Cup. And what Fernando Santos brings is pace, an energy that, with all respect to the players here in the midfield, none of those players really have. And there is something to be said for having someone like that on your roster for a tournament like this. You are guaranteed 3 games. That is all. If you can get deep in a tournament, a player like Fernando Santos with the skill level, I should say, at your disposal, whether it's in the starting lineup or whether it's off the bench, could be a benefit depending on who you're playing. But I think any uproar of him not making the team should be calmed down a bit because, again, I don't think he's done enough club form-wise this year to merit a spot over, I would say, the majority of the midfielders. Maybe Otávio, because he's been out a little bit too. Mateus Nunes hasn't had the best run at it at Wolves. You could say what you want about Benfica's start and their undefeated start, and you could see why João Mário could be called there. But if João Mário was left off this roster and Fernando Santos was the choice, I honestly wouldn't have a problem with it either. And while I am big on moving forward and going to this next generation, I don't get the hate for William Carvalho. I just don't. For me, he played well and has been playing well for the national team and has played well at Betis this year. So I think not only I have no problem with him being on this roster, I think it's merited, to be frank. So, going a little bit everywhere here in the midfield. Obviously, Bruno Fernandes has to step up in this World Cup. That is a given. I'd like to see what Vitinha could do in the middle of that field, in the midfield, if given the opportunity. So it's an interesting group. I am good with Fernando Santos on or off this roster. Personally, I would have liked to seen him on, but I'm not like up in arms about I can't believe he didn't make it. That's not where we're at with him right now. And again, he's a name. And as I look at the 55-man roster again, as I go through it, he's honestly the only. He'd be the first name I would bring up that wasn't called. I think as I'm looking at it really quick, I mean, he'd be my first midfielder that I would bring in case there was an injury. If you have the opportunity to do so prior to the World Cup, he'd be the first name I'd call 100%. But that doesn't equal him deserving to be on the roster. That's just my opinion. So that is the midfield. We'll finish up here with the forwards, the wingers, and as I mentioned before, this roster is lacking speed, and the only speedster we have in terms of some real pace is Rafael Leão and João Felix. João Felix, or check that, André Silva, Cristiano Ronaldo, Gonçalo Ramos, João Felix, Rafael Leão, and Ricardo Horta. So we talk about in form. This group is, I would say, half the group is in form, half the group is not. André Silva, not in great form. We obviously know what the trials and tribulations this season so far for Cristiano Ronaldo, and I would say both of those guys are probably the least in form of the four. João Felix kind of finding his way back a little bit with Atletico, some goals, some assists in the last few weeks. Gonçalo Ramos playing very well at Benfica. I actually like that call by Fernando Santos. Rafael Leão, obviously another great season with AC Milan, as well as Ricardo Horta at Braga. I don't think this group, though, scares anyone per se, just because, Ronaldo is not the same Ronaldo. And the way that Fernando Santos has unleashed, or not unleashed for a lack of a better term, his offense, I'm hopeful for this group. I could see, Ronaldo and Rafael Leão playing up top with Bernardo Silva in a 4-3-3. That seems to be a popular grouping, I guess, or combination. Obviously, with the Diogo Jota, he's out due to injury. Rafa Silva, the retirement. There was talk of I think like Paul Foot had said that Portugal and that Fernando Santos and Rafa needed to figure out a way. I believe Fernando Santos was asked about Rafa. Would he welcome him back? And he said, I'll have the conversation if there's a conversation to be had. And then Benfica manager Roger Schmidt, he's like, I don't think Rafa's going anywhere. I think he's made his decision, or the decision has been made, or something like that. But again, with pace, if I had a choice, I would have brought Gonçalo Guedes instead of André Silva. But again, it's not like I can't believe Gonçalo Guedes is not on this roster, and I can't believe André Silva is on this roster. Both guys not having great club seasons. But if I had to pick one or the other, I would pick Guedes over André Silva, because I feel that Guedes is just a better fit for what this team needs to do, and what they can do, I should say, in this World Cup. So that is a look at the roster. Just a couple of things. I've been texting and messaging people since the roster was called up here as I take a drink of water. And I'll mention something that my godson Michael Teixeira, who's been on this podcast before, he was the first guest of the podcast. The lack of pace, while it's definitely noticeable, may not be the worst thing given the conditions that the players are going to be playing in. We're talking about like mid-90s, maybe close to 100 for these games. And, maybe a more, a slower kind of grinded out Fernando Santos kind of style may be beneficial to us in this World Cup. just throwing out a scenario there. We do lack pace. We do lack a bit of just outright speed and a ferocity on the pitch. But given the playing conditions, maybe that's not a bad idea, or maybe that's not a bad thing, I guess. So we'll see. Again, this roster on paper can do a lot of damage. It's just what can Fernando Santos get out of this group, and what can he try to figure out how to get the best of this team and pull the right strings, because obviously he is under a lot of pressure and has been for the last couple of years. As much as I am not convinced that Pep is going to be playing, that Fernando Santos would probably be the first midfielder called if needed. I believe that Fernando Santos, and I don't care what his contract says, this man is coaching for his next Portugal paycheck if he wants to get it to 2024. If this team bows out, he's not coming back. I can't see the Federation doing that. That's putting the cart way before the horse, and obviously that's not an ideal situation for us as fans, nor for this group of players. But I just, you love to, it's the whole thing of, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and hoping for like a different outcome. Let's go insane, and I'm hoping against hope that this is a different maybe approach to things for Fernando Santos. But we shall see. A couple of things before we get out of here. The friendly against Nigeria on November the 17th, I think, can be huge in a positive way for this national team. One, not a lot of teams are going to be able to be to have a friendly, or they just have not scheduled a friendly due to the domestic leagues going on until this weekend. And then, you have games, I think, going on, I believe, even on Sunday, the 13th. And then you have the World Cup 1 week after, with Qatar and Ecuador opening things up on Sunday, the 20th. Portugal opens up 4 days later on Thanksgiving Day here in the States on November the 24th against Ghana. One, I love the choice in opponent for the friendly, because that word friendly, Portugal doesn't have friendlies anymore. It's Nations League, it's qualifiers, it's tournaments. Right now there aren't friendlies anymore, and we talked about it with Matthew Marshall in the last episode of the show, and that could be, these friendlies can or the lack of friendlies, I should say, I think have been a little bit of a detriment to the development of the younger players on this squad, or for the future of this national team, I should say, because Fernando Santos has gone with the players that he knows, and that's understandable given the fact that the Federation has put so much importance on the Nations League, and obviously the importance of qualifying for the Euros and for the World Cup. But I'd like to see. Me personally, I'd love to see Antonio Silva get a shot at center back in the Nigeria game. I don't want Pep playing in that Nigeria game at all. If he's going to play, let him play in the games that matter. So if you can get through the Nigeria game injury-free, which is what we all want, and maybe find some combinations that you've tried during the during training, and you see what happens. As long as they can get out of there injury-free, to me that's a plus. And you set up a way to kind of get ready for a team like Ghana, who, again, because of friendlies, you just don't get a chance to play a team like Ghana. So I think it's a great move in terms of opponent selection in Nigeria for this national team as we go towards the World Cup opening up against Ghana. Then you have the match against Uruguay, and then we finish up against South Korea. Group H, I saw a statistic that the last 3 World Cup winners all came from Group H. All right. I think coincidence, obviously, but let's go ahead and run with that scenario. Me personally, I think the winner of Group H, whether it be, and I think the two best teams, I think, are clearly Portugal and Uruguay. I think, and I guess I'll do a prediction. I predict that the winner of Group H, if everything goes the way it should go, with Brazil and Argentina and Spain and France, I believe that the winner of Group H is going to go to the semifinals of this World Cup. It's a bracket that can be the side of the bracket, I should say, if everything falls, as we say here, if it falls chalk, if it goes the way it's supposed to go, you avoid Brazil, Argentina, Spain on one side of the bracket. You would get France perhaps in the semifinals, or England in the semifinals. Or for us here in the States, maybe the U.S. in the semifinals. I know. But if you can figure out a way to avoid Brazil, because I think they're the odds-on favorite. I know that there's a lot of chirping going on about Argentina with Messi, obviously. His last World Cup. It's Ronaldo's last World Cup too. So, but I think Brazil is, I think, the clear favorite in this tournament. And if you can avoid them until, hopefully the final, I think you have a really solid shot of making a long run. And again, this national team, this Portuguese national team has all the players, all the skill, all the talent to make a big run in this tournament. They just have to take care of business in group play and ensure that they give themselves the best opportunity to advance round by round by round. A round of 16 exit is not going to cut it for me. Obviously, a group exit is definitely not going to cut it for me. But I think the goal should be, at the very least, the quarterfinals, with the hope and with the hope that they make it, obviously, to the semis, to the final, and to win the whole friggin' thing. But I think if it falls the right way, I think the winner of Group H, I think I think they're a lock. The winner of Group H is a lock to go to the semifinals. I don't believe in Belgium. I just don't. I know the Seleção lost to Belgium in the Euros last year. I wasn't convinced that Portugal wasn't the better team after 90 minutes. It just didn't go our way. And again, that's to the detriment of us with the style that Fernando Santos employed in that game. But I really think that the winner of Group H can definitely make the semifinals, and we'll see. And hopefully that's Portugal. So, one other thing before I get out of here, I'm going to do as many shows as I possibly can prior to the World Cup and during the World Cup. We're going to have guests on that we've had before. We're going to try to get some new guests as well. But the one thing that I have not been able to do yet, other than kind of doing it on Spaces on Twitter, and I think like we had one live show on YouTube that I did after one of the games. But I want to try to have you guys on in or have you, the viewer and the listener, have you guys be part of the show in almost like a talk show, radio show, town hall kind of deal prior to, and maybe even during the World Cup. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to put out a date and time for that episode, and hopefully you guys can, I'll send out a link so that you guys can get on the show, and we'll have a conversation with you guys. The one thing that I've always been amazed at and been humbled by is the amount of people who listen, the amount of people who follow us on social media, the interaction that we get with you guys, whether it be positive or negative. I just love interacting with people. I love talking about this team. And if I could figure out a way to get you guys on an actual on the show, on the pod, I think we'd have a great time. So, excuse me, let me get a little bit of more water here. But that would be the goal. One of the goals for me during this World Cup time is to get a fans episode. That would be tremendous, and I think we'd have a really, really good time at it. So yeah, just be on the lookout for everything coming your way from the show prior to and during the World Cup, and I just can't wait. The World Cup is World Cup special, and if our team can figure out a way, if this Portuguese team, this Seleção can figure out a way to right this ship that has been kind of, we are os navegadores for a reason. Hopefully we can navigate our way into a deep run in this World Cup in Qatar 2022. Still going to be weird having a World Cup in the winter as we even approach. Like I'm in sweatshirt. I'm in a sweatshirt. It's cold in the mornings now, and I'm in California, so I can only imagine how cold it's getting back east and in Canada and any other place where winter is prevalent at the moment. But yeah, I can't wait, and I hope you guys are obviously along for the ride with the show in every aspect and in every kind of outlet that we have. So again, bookmark the podcast's website, selecaopod.com, at selecaopod on Twitter and on Instagram, facebook.com/selecaopod, email the show selecaopod@gmail.com. Remember, hit the like button on this episode if you're watching us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, anywhere you're watching and listening to the show. 5-star ratings, leave us reviews. All of that is helpful to keeping the podcast going and making it more visible on podcasting and YouTube, the YouTube platform and podcasting platforms, wherever you are listening and viewing. And of course, again, look at this thing. Let's raise some money for men's health during the month of November. Go to my Movember link in the show description, both in the YouTube page and the podcast platform that you're listening to. We'll be raising funds all the way through November the 30th, and I'll be matching up to $100. I'll match anything up to $100 that we raise during the World Cup and during the month of November for Movember. So that will do it for us here on episode number 68 of the Seleção podcast. My name is Danny Pinto. I have been your host, and we are on the road to Qatar. We are a proud partner of Portugal.net, and we cannot wait for this World Cup to get started. And as always, Força Portugal!